Hi, greetings everyone. Welcome once again to my channel. So in Matthew chapter 18 verse 21 to 35, Jesus gives the parable of the unforgiving servant. And as a topic, I would like us to look at the theme of forgiven people forgive people. So this we find in Matthew chapter 18 verse 21 to 35. So from Matthew 18 verse 21 to 22, we find Peter's question. And Peter asked Jesus how often he should forgive someone. So Jewish custom had it, or Jewish tradition, or teachings, or rabbinical teachings, said as much as 3 times. I think 3 times a day. Peter doubles it and he adds one, and Peter asks Jesus, must he forgive if someone offends him, or if a person sins against him, must he forgive 7 times? Jesus comes and Jesus says not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Some translation says 77 times. But yeah, that's the idea there. And then from Matthew chapter 18 verse 23 to 27, we look at the immense debt. So in another translation it says 10,000 talents. So 10,000 talents was probably billions of dollars. In today's money, or even in that time, it was quite a lot of money. And then in Matthew chapter 18 verse 28 to 31, we find the petty refusal. In other words, the fellow servant just owed about, I think it's 100 denarii or 100 pence, which basically is about couple of thousands of dollars. So it's a fraction compared to what the original servant owed the king. And in Matthew chapter 18 verse 31 to 35, we find a stern warning that is given by Jesus. So the main point is that we as human beings have been forgiven an infinite or an unpayable or impossible debt by God, and it is wrong to withhold forgiveness from others for much smaller wrongs. So yeah, God has forgiven us big debt. So many people has got the wrong concept of forgiveness, but forgiveness does not always mean or always include reconciliation, reconnection, or regained access. In some cases, or in most cases, it's forgiven, access denied. It depends on the situation, if the situation allows reconciliation. But here we see 10,000 talents in this parable represents an impossible sum of money that no one can ever pay back. So we also see that God is represented by the king in this parable, and he is ready to forgive all our sins, no matter how heavy or great or small they are or feel. So the interesting part is that the same servant that was forgiven the 10,000 talents or billions of dollars, or an impossible debt or sum of money, refuses to forgive a small debt of only a few hundred pence or 100 denarii or thousands of dollars. So if we read Luke chapter 6 verse 36, I'll read it quickly. Luke 6 verse 36, and Luke 6 verse 36 is the following: you must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate. In other words, be merciful just as God is merciful. God has shown us mercy, so in return we must show others mercy. God gives us total forgiveness, and in return we must also forgive other people or other brothers and sisters, like it's written here in the parable. Those who hurt us daily or those who wrongs us, we must forgive them from our hearts or the inner person. And lastly, in 1 John 1 verse 9, but if we confess our sins to him, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all wickedness.